Richmond becoming a prime
Police
target
at
for
the
gun
scene
violence
in
once again. The city of Richmond was known as one of the most dangerous cities in the Bay Area, if not the country.
We do this for our future.
Moving forward.
For our future. Join us for difficult conversations about important topics.
Highlighting young leaders that are paving the way for change.
Have fun while sharing our platform with our favorite local businesses and organizations. And this is the For Our Future podcast. Let's keep Richmond moving forward.
Thanks again for sticking by us.
Are we live? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the For Our Future podcast. I'm your host for this episode. My name is Diana. I'm going to pass it over to Anselmo.
Hey, everybody. We're happy to be here. We're going to do our best and hold it down. We are missing a couple of our co-hosts, but we're going to make it happen. We have a special guest with us here today. Diana, are you ready to introduce this superstar's very long resume that I don't have in front of me, but I hope you do.
Well, I'm going to actually let our guest introduce himself because, yes, he does have a very long, impressive resume. We have here Mike Tachet. So, Mike, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
My name is Mike Tatchet. I have a Ph.D. in health psychology, and I'm glad to be here on the podcast.
Okay. Well, why don't you go into and explain a little bit what you do for the community, Mike?
I do a number of things. As a health psychologist, I help people understand what their diseases or infections are, what their options are for treatment, and recommending that they get treatment. I also counsel people who are victims of crime, and sometimes those who are accused of being criminal elements. And I also pastor a church here in Richmond, California.
What don't you do, Mike?
I don't do floors, I don't do windows.
All right, okay. That's what we should have asked you first. Like, what don't you do? You've been a shorter list. The guy does a lot. Thank you for joining us today, Mike. We appreciate that. Diana, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, had a chill day. And yeah, everything's running pretty smoothly. So what about both of you? How have both of you been doing? Anselmo, why don't we start with you and then Mike?
It's been an interesting couple of weeks. I'm glad to be here. Different things happening, all this COVID stuff and election stuff, and it's been a lot. But I'm glad to bring some positive energy to everybody today, and I've got some good news to share with you that I'll be sharing with you shortly.
And what about you, Mike?
The elections have been crazy, and I understand today that they're talking about shutting down the churches again and putting everybody back into isolation. So there's up and down. Yes, we can go out. No, we can't go out. Where can we go? Where we can't go. It's crazy making, but I don't think it's any worse for me than anyone else.
Well, as you can see, Mike has extensive experience, in this topic. And as a premise for this show, we're going to, try to dissect the neurological differences between male brains, more specifically male brains and, the female brain. But before that, Anselmo has a segment. So Anselmo, why don't you introduce to us the news that's going on today in Richmond?
Thank you. Ronnie, can I please get my quick and short transition? Yes, you guys. So first of all, as you all know, we've been doing this every week. We're going to keep doing it every week. We're going to be sharing positive things going on in the community So if you have something going on that you would like us to highlight and share, maybe a person doing something good in the community, maybe an upcoming event, let us know so we can make sure that we share it, and we're able to highlight good people doing good things. First up for today, we have Moving Forward's community event. This is our monthly event. Oh, don't worry about that, guys. A little technical difficulties. We're going to make it work anyways. The community cleanup is this Saturday. It's our monthly community cleanup every Saturday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We do have coffee and donuts, so there is an incentive to join us besides the obvious, right? Because we are working to uplift and empower our community. And one way we do that is by making sure that the youth have a nice, clean park to play in and use. You know, a lot of times when we do clean up and find a lot of needles, syringes, and stuff like that. And we're able to help make sure that we get that stuff off the street and make sure that it's a little bit cleaner for the community to use. So join us this Saturday, 10 a.m. at Unity Park. If you don't know where Unity Park is, it's at 16th and Ohio. You could message us if you need help finding it. We will be there. Shout out to Giselle and little Marco. They're helping to lead it. We appreciate them always spending time and energy helping us organize and get people out there. Also, SOS Richmond, that's Safe Organized Spaces, and that's organized by Daniel Barth. They're going to be collaborating with us, bringing out a group of folks. And what they do is they've been able to get stipends and able to pay some unsheltered community members to help do the work in the community of cleaning it up. And so I commend Daniel for his hard work in the community. He's been actively involved in working on that. And we look forward to collaborating and seeing you all this Saturday. Yes. Are you going to be able to make it to this Saturday?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There we go.
Sure.
I'm not going to be alone out there. We got Diana. Maybe Michael join us. All right. The next piece of news that I'd like to share is another event this Saturday coming up. And this is organized by So Richmond, another organization from the city. They're going to be hosting a fundraiser. They're looking to raise funds to be able to provide turkey dinners closer to the Thanksgiving week. So that during the 24th, and 25th, they're going to be distributing turkey dinners. But in order to do that, they're hosting this Thanksgiving fundraiser, which you can see on the screen here. Check it out. Show up. So Richmond, the information is on the flyer. You could message us and we'll get you the flyer so you could have that to share if you'd like. There are volunteers needed, chefs, food delivery. If you could just show up and do something, we need you, let us know. You could help us pass out these dinners to people who otherwise might not have a nice dinner to have on that day. So please join us. We're going to be helping out with that organization. So Richmond, that's this Saturday. It's right after the cleanup, 12 to 5 p.m. That is actually at Nickel Park. So first find us at Unity, and then you'll find some of us at Nickel Park Saturday. It's going to be a busy day, but we hope you could join us, even if it's just for a little bit. Yes. So that's it for my news this week. If you have some good news to share with us for the next episode, make sure you do get that information over to us. Yeah. Other than that, thank you everybody that voted and participated and exercised your civic duty of voting this election. Regardless of who you voted for, it's important that you do participate. And all my friends and folks who actually ran for office, those who may have won or may have not won, it is important that people do take that initiative and try and get out there and do something for the community. So we appreciate and thank everyone who did toss their hat into the ring. Yeah, and that's about it. Thank you.
I'm really glad you brought that point up. The more important thing is to vote. It doesn't really matter who you're voting for. That's your business. There's other propositions on there that affect you directly. And yeah, the important thing is just to not shame anybody for doing it or going this way or that way. At least they're, taking the initiative to do it in the first place. So with that being said, as I described, the premise of the show is to understand the neurological differences between males and females. So you may be thinking why this is important. So one reason is communication issues, right? You could be a parent and, you know, you see this shift with your child. You could be like, oh, my child used to love me. Now, you know, they don't want to be anywhere near me. They hate me. They're rebelling against me. I must be a bad parent. Or you just might see mood shifts. Maybe it's you know, your husband or your wife, there's a mood shift, or just a whole personality shift. There's different reasons why. And so this show will hopefully give you kind of more of an understanding. You know, with that being said, we do have a disclaimer to read. Mike, would you like to read out this disclaimer before we officially start the show?
This podcast is not intended to take the place of medical advice from a trained medical professional. Viewers are advised to consult a physician or other qualified health professional regarding treatment of their medical problems. We're going to be talking in general about the brain, the male brain, but if what your doctor has told you is different from what we say here, you need to follow the advice of your medical practitioner.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying. And just to further clarify, I by no means, you know, I don't know at all about this. I've read a few things on the topic, but this is like a very novice subject, at least like in the way I understand it. Mike is someone everyone here in the studio definitely trusts with this. So we're basically going to be picking his brain, asking him questions, and definitely asking for him to clarify. So with that being said, so you get a better understanding of the podcast from here on out, we're going to go through some terms. So this is going to help us go through hormone effects and just help you understand the hormones a little bit more. So we're going to start with testosterone. So from what I understand, Mike, of testosterone, it helps build muscle, right? It activates sex and aggression circuits associated in males. Is that true, or you want to further elaborate?
Well, testosterone is the main hormone that drives the male human being. Testosterone is not something that is unique to human males. It's been studied in animals. A lot of rats have had their brains studied. It is what makes the male a male. So,
have you thought, Anselmo, of any instances where testosterone really kicked in for you?
Probably, I guess, in the gym, you know,
Okay,
when you start getting your training going and you start feeling that pump, and I'm sure that testosterone does play a part there. But, you know, I don't know too much about it, so it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of just a wild guess.
Okay. So the next one we have is estrogen. So estrogen, it's associated mostly with females, and it regulates the menstrual cycle. So that's what I know about it so far. Anselmo, do you know anything really with estrogen?
Pretty much what you just mentioned. That's it.
Yeah, so very basic level. That's all we really know. Mike, how would you further elaborate estrogen?
If testosterone is the king of the male hormones, estrogen is the queen of the male hormones. During most of the male's life, the estrogen is very, very low. But where estrogen comes in with males is in a cuddle response. A lot of women complain, oh, my man will not hug me and hold me and cuddle me. And that's because estrogen is very low in the male brain. And so at different points in a man's life, he is much more agreeable to doing the cuddling that women want. And most of the time, he's the warrior Zeus and all-powerful. So estrogen does play a part in the male brain.
It plays a part, but you're saying in different points of a man's life, estrogen levels are higher, and at some parts of his life, the estrogen levels are lower. Is that what you're saying?
Most of his life, the estrogen levels are lower.
Okay, I see. Okay. Can you think any examples where estrogen kind of comes into play in Selma?
Oh, I wish I could, but I really,
No,
I'm at a loss there. Yeah, right. I can't.
So let's dive into oxytocin. So oxytocin is commonly described as the love hormone. So it makes us want to bond and cuddle, and it's associated with addiction. So when I was reading oxytocin, I couldn't differentiate it between dopamine. So I don't know if you know the difference on Samo, but if you could clarify.
All right, oxytocin in the male calms him down. Testosterone riles him up and gets him aggressive. The oxytocin is what calms him down, brings his blood pressure down, brings the desire to fight or flight down, and it's a feel good, but it's not a feel good in much the same way dopamine is.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. And so what about pheromones? So from what I understand, pheromones it's a chemical released, right, by species, meaning, either human or animal, and that kind of triggers a response, right, in members of the same species. That's what I know of it.
Okay, they're androstenedione. Long words still get me. Basically, these are odorless odors that are picked up in both the male and the female of the species nasal passages. It lets them know, for the male, almost immediately whether this female is someone that he's attracted to and wants to mate with and possibly spend the rest of his life with. It does more for a man's sex appeal than any aftershave or fragrance that you can buy in the store.
There you go.
Pheromones, you can order pheromones on Amazon, but they're for insecure people who are trying to attract anyone, and they don't normally work. So this is a natural phenomenon of the human body, of the brain, that we can't sell in a bottle.
That makes me think of like Pepe Le Pew,
Yeah.
the cartoon character, and how, well, he's a skunk, so he probably had other smells going on, but
Yeah.
It did have something else going on with the love life that he led.
Yeah, a lot of men in studies, have been able to decide whether they're attracted to a female within a matter of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And they attribute it to these odors that women put out and that men also put out, because women are also attracted to these odors.
That reminds me of, I watched it on this TV show, or I either heard about it on this podcast, but it was it was a study, and it was done with like people in a nightclub, and the control was women dancing. No, actually I don't remember the control, but the actual study was people dancing, and they rubbed like guys' armpit sweat on women's lips, and that made them want to, I guess, mate with them more. So I don't know. It sounds like it has some truth to it. Yeah, isn't that weird?
There was a study that was done where they took the sweaty T-shirts of men and women and had people smell them to see if they were attracted to the odor. So you're not too far off. There have been some strange studies done.
Yeah.
So a quick question that comes to mind. So let's say a guy is far enough away from the pheromones where he can't like really smell or a person, or he's looking at a picture. Based off the picture, will he still like someone, or is it the pheromones that kick in first, or how does that work?
No, pheromones are third or fourth step in the mating ritual. The first thing that turns a man on is pictures.
Oh, I see.
And so he may be in a sports bar, and he sees this woman across the room, and he's going to notice her female attributes, her breasts, her body shape, etc. And then he's going to know whether he wants to meet this woman, and if he's caught the woman's eye, she's watching him, he's watching her, and they're giving off subtle nonverbal hints, and the way they react to each other, he knows whether he's going to go out and buy her a drink. Okay? Then even a man's kiss, a French kiss, where the tongues meet. Men have enough testosterone in their saliva in their mouth that it can trigger in a woman's brain whether she's attracted to the man.
Wow.
So hormones do this dance, and they're either attracted or not attracted to the person. That can happen in a matter of minutes.
Oh, wow.
So the odorless odors go along with the kissing and the hugging and the cuddling that goes on in the male's desire to mate with someone.
Oh, that's super interesting. So kind of the way this episode was brought about was mainly through a book. It's called The Male Brain. There's another version of it called The Female Brain. So it breaks down these key terms, and after this we're going to talk about portions of the brain and, you know, life stages. We'll break that down a little bit, but that book kind of puts it in layman's terms, like easily understandable, digestible terms. Oh, okay, here. This isn't a plug. I don't know this person. I wish I knew her. But yeah, she's also a Ph.D. I think she works at UCSF.
MD.
Oh, MD. Oh, sorry. She's an MD. And she seems like a really good person. But that's basically how this book got brought about. And so, Mike, how did you get into this book? How did you hear about it, read about it?
I have studied the brain, psychoneuroimmunology in graduate school. The first book that caught my attention when I was a younger man was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. What I like about the male brain is that this woman has 30 pages of references and notes in the back of the book. Unlike a lot of authors, she's not presenting just her own opinion, but she's backing up her scientific opinions with scientific studies and facts. So for the general public, this is a great book to read. You don't have to know all the scientific terms and know exactly how each one works with the other. She puts it in layman's terms so that people can understand the male, may not like the male brain, but understands why men act the way they do.
Yeah, it will definitely make you, if you are a woman, or even if you're a guy, it'll make you more sympathetic, you know, to yourself or to other people, and it gives a scientific reason. It's not just, oh, because this person is evil, or I hate this person because it you know, X, Y, or Z. It gives you, you know, science behind it. So it takes all the feeling out, you know, like it's not messy. So that's why personally I enjoyed it. And I heard about this book through a comedian randomly. So I didn't even expect to read it, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, she usually recommends good books, so I'm just going to give it a try. That's basically how it got brought about. But aside from that, we're going to break down two parts of the brain, right? So, and please, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, correct me. From what I understand, the amygdala, it's concerned, that's part of the brain, it's concerned with emotional and behavioral functions, and it processes fear. And, fun fact, it's larger in males than it is in females. So is that true, or is that anything you want to add clarity to, Mike?
Yes, it is, as you say it is. It's the fear center. A lot of people will know it by the fight or flight syndrome. And in fact, the flight and fight syndrome has been expanded to include a freeze, where you don't do anything. And that's based upon the study of animals in Africa, where if a lion is overtaking another animal, it'll just drop to the ground and freeze. And oftentimes the lion goes on for somebody else. So by freezing, that's a mode of survival. And most recently, I was at a seminar recently where they're also including the nesting.
Oh.
And nesting is more of a female attribute. And it's like, for instance, when there's a crisis in a woman's life, she wants to be home with her family in familiar surroundings, and that's a nesting instinct. And this is also, the nesting instinct comes into the male brain when his mate is pregnant and going to have a baby. And, at that point, the estrogen level goes down, and it works favorably towards children. It also handles fear of rejection. When a high school boy or a junior high school boy is in school, he's got this fear of being rejected. The worst thing you can tell an elementary school boy or a junior high school boy is, oh, you're a sissy. And that will really make him want to fight because you're telling him he's a girl. So that also deals with the fear of rejection. That plays a part in the male's life throughout most of his life. When he's an adult, the fear of rejection from other men. There's a hierarchy of pecking order in groups of men. The fear of rejection from a woman. He gets up the guts to go say, hi, can I buy you a drink? And she says, no. That's rejection. So a man is always operating with the fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's super interesting. How can you think of any instances in Samo where, this fight, flight, or freeze response, or even nesting response has happened?
Like maybe in grade school, when I've got into conflicts and such, I could remember always feeling like, I just wouldn't back down. Like, I couldn't, because then I would be like embarrassed, or I would be humiliated for not, standing my ground and, backing down from anyone, regardless of whether that put me in harm's way or not. I was pretty sure, like, could have been anything could have happened, and there was no way I would back down, even with like a guy that's like 7 foot tall or having a gun drawn on me. And situations like this, it has gotten to the point where it could be a problem. It's dangerous sometimes. But that was something that I grew up, and I think that part of that is just part of my upbringing, and the way that I was raised was like, really hanging on to your like respect and stuff like that, like, don't let anyone disrespect you, and don't back down. And so that's something that I think that relates.
So you would say within fight, flight, or freeze, you're more of the fight mode?
Yeah, I mean,
your response
at a time when I was more in grade school. Now I think that I'm a lot more mature, and so that if I were to be in a situation like that, it's a lot less for me to worry about being humiliated. Like those aren't the type of thoughts that cross my mind anymore. Now it would be more like safety first. It's like, who cares? But I remember when I was younger, like there was no way that I would back down from a situation like that.
Yeah, I bet you thought about it later, and you're like, oh man, why'd I do that? But sometimes it's instinctual. You know what I mean? You can't control it. I know a quick example for me, right, is like, say, this actually happened. There was a car accident, and a lady she got ran over. Her leg, her bone was protruding from her leg.
Oh.
And so I kind of saw all three people react. Like the lady that was in front of her, she was screaming hysterically, but she was kind of like, she didn't know what to do. Another lady just froze, and I'm like, what the heck? There's like all these women, like they're just freaking out. And so I called the cops, and it was like the first thing I could think of. And I asked the lady, oh, let me get your cell phone? Can I call your husband or whatever? So in that instance right there was 3 different reactions, so I guess you never really know. Maybe sometimes, and Mike feel free to tap in. But maybe sometimes you feel like the best way is to either put in your fight mode or your like quick response mode, or maybe you freeze. Can you think of any instances, Mike, or do you have anything to say about that?
Being an older male, I remember the nursery rhyme, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." And when I was younger, I was much more agreeable to getting into a fight with another man.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I get, the more I realize that whether I win or lose the fight, I'm still going to be hurt. And is my dignity worth hurting my body?
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when something like that comes up, I just step back.
Mm-hmm.
I just step back. They can call me a sissy, they can do whatever they want, but no, I'm not going to fight you.
Yeah, I think what Mike said is what I was alluding to earlier, but he put it together a lot more eloquently than I did. I just think that that is something that I totally relate to, and it's like not really worth it at the end of the day. Fight or flight, it's easier for me to think like, well, like this person who may be trying to engage in a fight or fisticuffs or whatever you want to call it, may have like mental issues. I mean, obviously, they don't have as much to lose as maybe the other person or I would have. So it's easier for me to just say, like, be mad all you want, but unless it's like no other option, I will find a way to defuse the situation or walk away.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. So a second part of the brain we're going to be talking about is the prefrontal cortex. So this is actually larger and matures faster in women, and it is crucial for decision making, and it inhibits rash behavior. So Mike, why don't you go into that a little bit? So can you describe the prefrontal cortex?
That is the analytical part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that you may feel like slugging someone in the mouth because you're angry, but the prefrontal cortex will say, why don't we hold off on that feeling? That's an impulse that, we can always do that later, but why don't we think about what we're going to do first? Women are much more prone to analyze a situation than to go off impulsively. I think as a male gets older, the analytical portion of his brain comes into play a lot faster. I'd say a teenager, he's going to get angry and he's going to respond, and it's like the fear portion is the gas pedal of a car. The prefrontal cortex is the brake. But a young man is just going to stomp down on the gas and away we go. An older man's going to hit the brake and say, wait a second, let's think about this a little bit. So I think with age and experience and maturity, men learn to analyze more as they get older than when they're younger. I remember a time in high school where a girlfriend said, "Oh, he looked ugly at me, go beat him up." Well, maybe my analytical brain had developed earlier and said, "He looked at you ugly. You want to beat him up? You go beat him up. I'm not going to go beat him up just to prove that I like you."
Yeah.
So, there you go.
So what would you say about women who are just super prone to fighting and just aggressive? Would you say that prefrontal cortex, because in theory it should already be a little bit developed by their early 20s, right? But like, let's say they're in that mode, they're just always down or something. It explains more. I get it more in males because that region of the brain is supposed to be smaller, right? In some instances, not in all, but would you say that's the case?
Remember, like for instance, in the teenage years, the male brain is being hit with 20 times more testosterone than he's ever known in his life. women's brains are being hit with much more estrogen than they've ever experienced in their lives. And so I think both male and female teenagers have a juggling act to do to figure out what is this hormone, why is it affecting me this way, and do I like the way it affects me? There are women that, they like attention, and they may find another female because they feel that that female is trying to take attention away from them or take their boyfriend away from them. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are happening simultaneously in the female brain and in the male brain, especially as teenagers and into the 20s. Another problem that can aggravate it is alcoholism or alcohol consumption.
How does it do that?
It makes you act more on your emotion. If I'm a man and I'm in a bar with my woman and somebody looks at her ugly, I'm going to go thump on him just because this is my woman and my property. And a female may think that some other woman in the bar is trying to take her man away from her and she's going to get possessive. So all of a sudden we have a cat fight going on, or, so, I mean, both males and females have to grow up and grow into their hormones and feel comfortable with their hormones to understand how their brains are reacting.
Definitely. So, in a nutshell, why would you say that it's easier for women to communicate and express themselves versus men? What is like the advantage that they have?
Okay. It goes back from being in the womb. Males have testosterone going on. They come out of the womb. They're rough and tumble. They're like, a baby boy will get down on the floor, and if daddy isn't rough and tumble with him, he'll start being rough and tumble with daddy, because this is part of the testosterone in his little body. Okay. And that goes on. It goes up into competitive sports in the latency stage of a boy. In elementary school, boys don't want to play with girls, and that's all right. Girls don't want to play with boys because boys play too rough. Girls are raised to grasp their emotions. They want to connect with other girls. You'll see a bunch of girls on the playground, and they're all getting along. They don't do rough and tumble. They're more sensitive to other people's feelings. As a boy is growing up, he's taught, knock that off. That's sissy stuff. You're crying, you're being a girl. And from the time a boy can remember, he's being taught, be strong, be tough. As a teenager, he's learning, don't show emotion on your face. Women show emotion all the time. Some man comes up to me and he really looks mean. I know there's danger involved. So a male is taught to ignore his feelings. A woman is taught to express her feelings. And in fact, this becomes real tough when, say, a couple gets married, because men are prone to want to solve things. And something I found out early on in my life, I'd be with a girlfriend, she's complaining about this, that, or the other. Boom, I go into fix-it mode. Hey, do this and this and this. She gets mad at me. You don't care about me. You're not listening to me. You're trying to solve my problem. I just want you to listen to me. Am I wrong, guys? They don't want you to tell them what to do. They want you to commiserate and hug them and cuddle them and show the emotions. Poor baby, I know what you're feeling. I mean, when's the last time you were around a guy and he was doing that type of thing? Oh, yes, I understand exactly what you're going through. Oh, it's so terrible. No. So men are taught to deny their feelings unless it has to do with territory or your mate or your property. And then you don't show emotion, you defend your mate, your property, your possessions. Women Well, let's talk about a woman when she gets pregnant. She's starting her nesting thing. She's getting her house ready. She's getting the things for the little baby ready. And she's doing all these wonderful emotional things. And men are going, what the heck are you doing? Woman, you've cleaned the house from attic to basement 5 times this week. Okay, but that's what's inbred into women through their hormones, to nest, to prepare to reproduce. You know, when guys see a woman, they want to have sex right now. Women are going, oh, wait a second, bud, you're moving too fast for me. She's looking for security. She's looking for a good provider. You know, love is maybe third on her list, not first. So, yeah, when it comes to love, then men will show a whole lot of emotion. But as a rule, women are a lot more touchy-feely. They're a lot softer. Little girls don't like to play with little boys because boys are rough and girls are soft. And that's not the way a little girl, that's not the way a little lady would play, rough and tumble. And you can see this in cultures and the way children are raised.
Definitely. So you're saying that aside from, you know, these hormones, it's also a little bit of social conditioning. And so that kind of mixes, and that's what you get. There's a lot of miscommunication from what it sounds like. Me and Anselmo are cracking up over here. You guys don't know this, but my boyfriend's in the room right now. And so we're looking at each other like, oh, for sure. And you sound like you definitely know.
Yeah, there were some points there that I agree with, but I'm not going to put myself in harm's
yeah,
way here. So we're going to avoid this
Keeping it very, keeping it very, you know, topical. But yeah, definitely.
It's important for men to understand how women's brains operate, and for women to understand how men's brains operate, because the more you can understand about yourself and about each other, the better your relationships can be. Older men get angry very quickly, and a part of that's because they're losing their virility, their estrogen's going down, this, that, and the other. And you know, I had a woman come up to me and say, my husband was just acting crazy, man. He could have been killed. And the husband's there going, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And he was mad, and she was scared. So there are a lot of things that people can avoid pitfalls in their relationships by understanding how each other's brain works.
Yeah, I most definitely agree with that statement.
And I hope your boyfriend does too.
Oh yeah, he's really good with that. So basically we're painting the picture, right? Whenever there's major transitions, hormone shifts begin. So, you know, from boy to teen, there's the biggest spike in hormone, right? From boy to teen.
Yep.
And then from teen to adulthood, is there a spike, or is there what does it look like from teen to like 20s? Let's break that part down a little bit.
Okay, a teenage male is still trying to figure out what's happening to his brains and his body. And as he starts to learn about the hierarchy of males, he begins to, his sex drive really increases. As he gets out of his teens into his 20s, he's on a constant search. I mean, there's a joke going around that a man thinks about sex once every 7 seconds. Well, that's wrong. It's once every 5 seconds.
Oh my God.
But I mean, as you get older, yes, you still admire female attributes, but you're not driven by sex as much. Into your 20s, you're looking to secure a job. You're dealing with the hierarchy at work. You're spending your time off the job. You're being driven to find an appropriate mate, that someone you can settle down with. And in the 20s, life is not as stable. There's something about finding a mate that stabilizes your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So the 20s is basically if you go to college, finishing college and getting a job that's congruent with what you want to do with your life, and socializing, having your buddies, and then being attracted to women. That's the simplest way I can put it.
We actually have a teen here in the studio right now. Ronnie, what would you say is your main priority right now as a teen? Your biggest, goals?
Definitely finish my college applications. I just finished my Cal States today. Now I gotta work on UC, but mainly just trying to focus on myself. Not worry about females. It's like they've heard this phrase before. They're plenty of fish in the sea. They're gonna come and go. So right now, just pretty much just focusing on myself. Stay ahead of my classes. Obviously focus on sports that I play, basketball, football. Just pretty much just staying true to myself. Treating myself right, and ladies will come and go. So that's pretty much it for me right now.
So there you go. Ronnie's 17. So that kind of gives you an insight of what the teen brain is like right now. Soon to be adult, but let's transition it from teen to adulthood. Anselmo is coming out of his 20s and his 30s right now. Mm-hmm. What would you say is, your main goals and your main priorities as someone in their early 30s? And what was the transition? Were you more focused on in your 20s and now in your 30s? What is your main?
Well, right now, I'm just trying to focus on working hard so my dog Hercules can live a better life than I did growing up. No. All jokes aside, I think at this point, I think I hit it on a couple of the past episodes. I think something that's important to me is like legacy and living a life that's meaningful and purposeful. Those are things that I try and strive for, and make an impact on the people around me through moving forward. All the things I do with moving forward, that's what drives it. It's about legacy, making a difference, doing something positive in the community. And there's that quote that I live by, and I'll share it again. I might butcher it and rephrase it because I've done that in my head. But it's when I die, or when you die, and everyone that you've known while you were here dies, unless you've done something significant, it'll be as if you were never born. And so that's something that kind of drives me. But when I was more in my 20s, I would say that I was more concerned about, I'm not going to say the wrong things because I learned a lot through the experience, but I wasn't so concerned with the things that I'm concerned with now. So materialistic things, my girlfriend or whatever else, women. Just kind of my perspective was different. Mm-hmm. I can elaborate that, I guess, but does that answer the question?
Yeah, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So you would say, in a nutshell, you care more about building, right? Mm-hmm. Now in your life, now you're not focused more on superficial things like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I think a good example or a way for me to describe that is, like the things that I was more impressed by, or things that I was striving for, would no longer be like the fancy car or jewelry or things that like don't really impress me like they once may have. Mm-hmm. Now it's like somebody that's really doing something in the community, or somebody that's really doing something, meaningful. Like that is something I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Mm-hmm. Wow, like I tip my hat off to this person. Mm-hmm. Whereas before it's like, oh, you have this fancy car. Well, that's impressive. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. So before we wrap up a little bit here, we should definitely talk about the daddy brain. So this is when, like Gio, who's not here today, I wish I could have your perspective, but like Gio, someone who's preparing to have a kid, and within the 9 months throughout the woman's pregnancy. How would you say that affects a male's brain? Mike?
The daddy brain. Number one, when man finds out his mate is going to have a baby, his testosterone begins to decrease substantially, and I've forgotten the fancy term, but for instance, as the wife gains weight during her pregnancy, her husband does too. And the wife may get morning sickness, and all of a sudden, her mate does too. The woman begins to do her nesting thing, preparing for the baby. The man does too. He may paint a room, he buys a crib, he sets the room up way in advance. Testosterone goes down, the demand for sex goes down. And when the baby arrives, it's very, very important that the man touch the baby, hold the baby, interact with the baby. Babies whose fathers interact with them grow up to be much more stable children and adults than men who refuse to interact with their children. They say, oh, that's women's work. And there are cultural things like this. The children grow up to be less secure. Mm-hmm. So a baby needs both its parents to help raise it. Number one, that takes a load off the mom. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the man realizes that he's no longer number one in his wife's or his mate's life. The baby's number one. Mm-hmm. He comes in a distant second. But at the same time, as the baby begins to grow, the baby will form an attachment with the father. And the first attachment's with the mom. That's where he gets fed. That's who nurtures him. And the way a mother interacts with her child is different from the way a man interacts with his child. Man will be more rough and tumble. A lot of women complain, oh, my husband's just too rough with that baby. Scientific research has shown that once a baby reaches about 6 months of age, if the baby and the father are on the floor and the father's not being rough with him, the baby gets on him and gets rough with him. So male babies can be rough too. And whereas the mother is all nurturing, the father has a tendency of developing ways that the child grows and matures in his realistic expectations of the world. So the biggest thing I could say about that, and the amount of time we have left, is dads have to be involved with their babies, mm-hmm. baby boys and baby girls. And I mean, I've seen daddies whose 4-year-old daughters chastise them because they didn't do the tea party right. And in research, the man says, oh, I love it when she does that. So, I mean, both boy babies and girl babies grow up to be in a much healthier environment when both parents are involved.
Most definitely. And, this is just a little addition to, supplement what Mike said. This is according to a 2014 study done by Harvard University. So it was a study that, dissected active fathers living with their kids. They're shown to work harder, and they tend to have greater lifetime earning when compared to single men. So, and that's attributed to, the family structure and men feeling the need to, provide for their children. So that's just a fun fact. Something everyone should know. So also with the daddy brains, we talked about pheromones. That's something that links, things like weight gain with the father, or the importance of child play and roughhousing after the child's birth. So yeah, other than that, do you have anything to add, Mike?
Just how important it is for men to be involved with their children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actively involved with their children. And not, men interact with their children differently than mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So men should act like men around their children instead of trying to imitate or mimic the mother.
So we're running out of time here. We have 1 minute. I'm gonna quickly go through a segment and shout out one of our scholarship recipients. So today we're going to be giving a shout out to Ruben Rodriguez. So he's currently a junior at Stanford and he's set to graduate in 2022. He works with students not only from Richmond, but also dreamers, specifically from the East Palo Alto area, and he mentors them. So a big shout out to Ruben. He went to Richmond High School, born and raised here in Richmond. If you're interested, we're going to have more information about this scholarship around March. We're going to be finalizing the applications end of this year, early next year. If you know any scholars who are interested, we're definitely going to be providing the link, sometime later this year. But thank you so much, Ruben, for applying. We hope you apply again. And yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for coming and kind of explaining to us, breaking down the male brain. And Anselmo, thank you for sharing your experiences. Does anybody want to do any shout outs or anything like that?
First, I want to shout out all the dads out there. I know I got a few friends who are expecting soon, so hopefully they're able to tune in, and I'm going to make sure that they check this out if they didn't, so they could have a little bit more information and maybe have a different perspective. But yeah, I thought it was a very interesting topic. Thank you, Mike, for joining us, taking the time this evening. And those of you who don't know, Mike, he supplies us with information behind the scenes sometimes. So this is not his first time participating in the show, maybe with the cameras on, but he has helped us out with research and stuff in the past. Yes. So big shout out for Mike for always helping us out. We appreciate that. Ronnie, the man behind the cameras, doing his thing on the computer, making sure that you could see us and making sure that all the audio and stuff is working out. We definitely appreciate that. Lady, who does all the social media, she's been posting and keeping you all posted on what we're doing, moving forward is doing. So thank you, Lady, for taking care of that. We hope to see you all on Saturday at the cleanup, Unity Park, 10 a.m. We hope you could join us there. And of course, we cannot do this all without the viewers. So we definitely appreciate you all tuning in on a Wednesday evening. You could be watching probably a million different shows or a million different things. So we appreciate your support tuning in, and we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And don't forget, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff so we can continue doing what we're doing and share this message with more folks. Stay tuned every Wednesday, 7 p.m. on YouTube live, and you could join in a conversation and participate in the show via the chat section. Last thing, a birdie told me, Mike, that you are a veteran. Is that true?
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Mike.
We appreciate your service. And today, of course, is Veterans Day, so we can't let the episode go by without acknowledging that. I think that's important. So salute to all the veterans, and thank you, Mike, again. That's it. That's all I have to say. I know it's not a mouthful.
And with that being said, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, thank you, Mike. And we hope you tune in next episode. We'll see you then.